Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been quite some time since I've shared anything with you, but today I wanted to open up about why it's been so long since I've shared anything, and sort of the roller coaster that the past few years of my life has been. So first off, it's how rude, just how rude. First off, if I sound funny, I apologise. I have a really bad ear infection that's been like the last 2 days and I can barely hear. I sound like I feel like I've got a fish bubble on my head, like a fish bowl on my head. So yeah, basically I just sort of wanted to come back, explain where I've been, why I've not been posting, sort of what's been going on in my life. That was very Yorkshire, in my life, and how I'm going to be moving the channel forward from here. So first things first, I think you may have noticed possibly that my channel is no longer called Blissfully Crafted, it's called Tony Stirs, which is obviously just my name. That is because I am sort of moving away from just knitting. That has been what my channel's been dedicated to for a long time, but it's not bringing me the same joy that it used to, but creativity in general is, and I really just kind of want to document my creative journey really. So things are going to change a little bit, but I will be leaving all of those knitting videos up because they have obviously been very useful for people in the past. I understand that if me changing the direction of my channel means that you want to unfollow, that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to be at all offended by that. But yeah, this video is just about the last few years, up until probably about summer 2023, at which point things in my life became even crazier than what I'm going to talk about in this video, and that needs a video dedicated all on its own to what sort of happened from summer onwards last year. But prior to that, these are the things that have been going on in my life. This is the reason that I have not been showing up anywhere on the internet for work. Like literally I've been surviving, I've been looking after my daughter, and surviving. So it's been real tough, so we're just going to get into that. I just wanted to pop in and do a quick trigger warning. This video talks about a few triggering topics. It talks about miscarriage, it talks about baby loss, it talks about fatal car accidents, and it talks about pet loss. So there's quite a bit in this, and I just want you to be mindful of that. If you think any of this is going to damage your mental health, please just give this video a miss. Basically life's thrown some really challenging curveballs my way since probably 2018, the year my daughter was born, which of course was one of the most joyous moments of my life, was my daughter being born. But from there on in, I was handed all sorts of curveballs, and I've faced situations that have tested my strength, my resilience, my grit, my survival. But if I've ever doubted my own resilience in the past, which I know I definitely have, I don't anymore. So let's get into it. So when Bonnie was about 10 months old, my life sort of started taking a bit of a dramatic turn for the worse really. So I went for a standard cervical smear test, and it came back showing that I had severe precancerous cells on my cervix, and I needed to have a LETS procedure in December to remove them. I then had a traumatic breakup on Christmas Day. 2 a.m. on Christmas Day, my partner at the time broke up with me after I found out he'd been having an affair with one of his colleagues. So it was my daughter's first Christmas. I think understandably that was followed by a period of really deep depression. It was incredibly hard to come to terms with everything that had been happening. So navigating life as a single parent with very bad depression, I just felt like the universe was against me. Things were really tough. After about almost a year of being single and just trying to figure things out, figure out how I felt, overcome the depression, etc., I decided I was going to re-enter the dating pool. And I had a few dates, and then I started seeing this one guy who I really liked, and I felt like we had loads in common. We seemed to have the same goals for our future. We both wanted long-term relationships, and we both wanted more children, and blah blah blah. Anyway, after that I discovered the harsh reality of betrayal. After an unintentional pregnancy, just added another layer of complexity to my life. When I spoke to the father and told him I was pregnant, he demanded I get an abortion, which I didn't want to do. Basically, there was then this subsequent revelation that actually, while I thought I was his girlfriend, I was actually third in line after a wife and a girlfriend. So then I understood why he was so desperate for me to have a termination, but I said to him, I don't want you to be involved, I don't need you to be involved, I'm keeping this baby. And that was that. And I told my family that I was having the baby, and I was quite excited. It was a hard decision, but being a mum is the only thing I've ever really felt came naturally to me. So I wasn't really scared about the idea of doing it again. I was already a single mum anyway, so I was excited, mostly, with a little trepidation, of course. Anyway, after making the decision that I was going to keep the baby, I told my family, much to their disapproval, but that was fine. They accepted my decision anyway. And then the day after, I started to bleed. I went for an emergency scan, and it was discovered that not only did I not have a baby in my uterus, I actually had a 3-centimetre tumour in my uterus. It's a pretty rare occurrence. I think it's something like 1 in 700 pregnancies. It's called a molar pregnancy, if you want to research into it. There's 2 different types, a partial and a complete. I had a complete molar pregnancy. It's not cancer, but it's like a pre-cancer. If it doesn't get treated properly, I think it can spread. It's quite complicated, but anyway, I had to have surgery to remove the tumour, obviously. And then I had 6 months of follow-ups where I had to send urine samples to another city every 2 weeks, because there are only three cities in the UK, 3 hospitals in the UK that will deal with molar pregnancies, because they're very uncommon. And obviously I had to be abstinent, which wasn't really an issue, but again, that can cause issues further down the line. If you were to accidentally end up pregnant, it can cause problems. So anyway, yeah. Amid all that chaos, I was actually studying. I was actually studying to become a nail technician. I started studying, I think, November, something like that. I can't really remember. It's a long time ago. I've slept since then. But yeah, I was training to be a nail technician. I was really quite excited about that. Then I got pregnant while I was on the course, and then after that had all ended, and I had the surgery, the world went into lockdown. So just as I qualified, I had the surgery, I qualified, and then it was illegal to touch people's hands. So yeah, that didn't really work out, but never mind. So this isn't all bad news. This isn't all a horrible story. There are a couple of good bits. The main one being that during all of this, I happened to fall in love with my next door neighbour, which was amazing and has been amazing and is still amazing, and I'm still very much in love with him, and he lives with me now. He's no longer my next door neighbour. That sort of just happened because obviously the only people we could really talk to were our neighbours over the wall and here we are. Yeah. So after that sort of happened, we navigated the challenges of parenting in a pandemic, mostly together. Sort of like the first half of the pandemic, I was a single parent, and that's where all my grey hairs came in because nursery shut down, and that was a lot. And then, yeah, we got together, and it made things a lot easier, which was wonderful. And him and my daughter have an amazing relationship now. They're really, really close, so that's great. In 2021, it's the year after lockdown. Yeah, in 2021 I was diagnosed with ME/CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome, or myalgic encephalomyeloma. It actually followed a period of really good health, because after I'd had the molar pregnancy, I was now single again. My daughter was back into a routine at going nursery, and I started running regularly. I was eating really well. Like, for the first time ever, I felt very in control of my life. And then my Crohn's disease flared up, which caused my joints to flare and get inflamed and painful. And because I'd never been successful at any exercise before, and because I kind of have an all or nothing attitude, even though I was having quite a lot of pain in one of my knees, I continued to push myself, and I pushed myself much harder than I should have, and I did further damage. This sort of continued to escalate for a while until my fatigue became so bad that I was just literally couldn't move. It was a really, really, really challenging time. I was given steroids, which helped my Crohn's and cleared it all up, but unfortunately the fatigue was still there, and I went through a period of maybe 6 months where I couldn't climb the stairs, I couldn't get to the bathroom. It was summer, and I remember laying across the floor of my patio, which is just down here, like in my house, watching my partner and my daughter play in the garden, completely unable to move. I wanted to be involved, and the only way I could be involved was by laying there and watching them, and occasionally trying to say things, but even speaking was very, very exhausting. It was a very scary time. I apologise for the noise. There's a storm, I have doors open. I didn't believe I was going to get better. I believed this was my life. And if you want to know any more about ME/CFS, there is a Netflix documentary. Let me think. It's not called Awake, I've made that up. Unrest. I think it might be called Unrest. Anyway, I remember watching that with my partner just after I'd been diagnosed, and we just sat there and sobbed, because we just both were like, well, my life is ruined. If this is my life now, there is no coming back from this. There is no improvement. There has been improvement. I'm lucky in that respect. I live in fear of the next time it happens. I'm hoping that never does. But it was bad. Anyway, but with the support of my partner, with the support of the NHS, I was given some sort of therapy to help me work through it. I learned all about pacing and things like that. And while I've never returned back to normal, I am much, much better. I'm sat up, I'm talking, I can do things. So after that, I struggled to get out, and we thought what a great idea it would be to get a dog. And when I say we thought this, what I mean is my partner was asleep and my daughter was at her dad's, and I was on Facebook and I saw a rescue dog in Romania listed on a rescue page, and I fell in love with her and put the application in. My partner came downstairs. I was like, just so you know, She's amazing. She is a survivor. She was found with, her and her brother together were found with upwards of 1,000 ticks in their ears. They both contracted parvo. Her brother sadly passed away, but she is a little fighter, and she's amazing, and she's so funny. She is just the most beautiful little pup. She has a heart full of love and a brain full of nothing. She might be one of the most dim-witted animals I've ever met, but that just adds to her charm. She's wonderful. At this point, I was sort of desperately hoping that some sort of reprieve was on the way, but unfortunately life did have other plans. That the following January, which was January 2022, I was out walking, which was a massive milestone because obviously 6 months prior I hadn't even been able to move and get up the stairs, and I was walking Nika, and I was having a lovely morning. It was a beautiful morning, and then on my walk I walked across this bridge which goes over the motorway, and I always look over because of course I do. I'm walking and looking, and I saw that there was police cars and I saw various things, and they'd been filming a TV programme called Happy Valley, sort of in my area-ish, over the last few weeks prior to that. So I kind of saw all the police cars and I was like, oh yeah, and I thought they're probably filming Happy Valley. Didn't think much of it, continued walking. And then as I started walking back to go home, I looked again, thinking, oh, I might see some celebrities. I didn't. I unfortunately saw a body being pulled from the car. It was a fatal car wreck, and so unfortunately I saw the body being pulled from the car and covered with a blanket, and the coroner's van pulled up. Like, I watched for so long. I really wanted to stop looking so badly. I wanted to stop looking. There was something screaming. My head was screaming, stop, stop, stop. I couldn't. It was like I needed to process what I was seeing. I needed to not be left with any answers because I knew that I wasn't going to stop thinking about it. And it didn't work because even then, even though I'd seen it and I knew I'd seen it, I went, like, I was Googling, like, what colour blanket would they put over a body? Like, I was trying to make it make sense. I called my partner. He ran at the speed of light to come and get me. But that was really hard, and I was finding it hard to go out after that happened again. So once again, I felt like I was kind of being trapped. My world was getting smaller. But my granddad, who was he was my dad. He raised me. I lived with him my whole life. He got quite ill, very ill, in fact, in April. Anyway, he contracted COVID, and 2 weeks later he died. At this point now, honestly, I can't entirely remember what it was he died from because life has been so insane since. I don't think he died from COVID. I think he died from complications of COVID. But it was such a long time ago. Later that year, at this point I was pretty much completely agoraphobic because of the car accident and my granddad dying. You know, the outside world felt incredibly unsafe, so I stopped going out. Later on that year, the 23rd of December, in fact, a taxi crashed into my garden in the middle of the night, and the driver died outside our house. Our house was an active crime scene for the full day before Christmas Eve. And at that point I really did feel like I was being targeted, and I know that sounds incredibly selfish when you consider that there was a man who died, and trust me, I felt a great deal of guilt about that as well. But it really did feel like, even though I had trapped myself inside these four walls, terrifying, traumatic things were still They were just coming to me now. They were coming to my house. So yeah, I've kind of been agoraphobic ever since then. The new year started. We started 2023. Yeah, we're in 2024 today. Yeah, so 2023 started, and I honestly believed, maybe I didn't believe, maybe I convinced myself that things were going to get better now because all of this horrible stuff had happened in 2022, and surely 2023 could not treat me as badly. Oh, Nelly, was I wrong? Wow. Yeah. Found out I was pregnant in early 2023, January, I assume. Everything's a blur. January, I think. We went for an early scan because I'd had a previous molar pregnancy. They will scan you early to make sure it's not a molar pregnancy because it's more likely if you had one before. Went for the scan, saw the heartbeat. Me and my partner were so excited, and we were like, "This is it. We're gonna get our baby." And then at 11 weeks, just before I was due to go for my scan, I started bleeding. I went back for another emergency scan, at which point they told me that baby had stopped growing at about 7 weeks, which meant it had died really just after we'd seen its heartbeat almost. And I had a very, very tiny bleed just after my scan. So yeah, I then had to miscarry at home with the support of my partner. So the day that I was meant to be having my 12-week scan was the day that I miscarried this baby. There have been another few things in this year. My next door neighbour, in terms of, this is complicated, so my partner's parents had an amazing dog, Dixie. She was wonderful. I loved her so much. In fact, she very much brought me and Jacob together because well, she was wonderful. She was such an amazing talking point. I loved that dog so much. And while at some point during 2023 I was pregnant at the time, found out she had cancer and she had to be put to sleep. I really wish that was the last of the loss, but unfortunately it's not. But the rest of the loss happened after Dixie died. And that needs to be a video all in itself because what happened at the back end of last year was one of the most devastating things I've ever been through in my life, and I hope it's the most devastating thing I ever go through. I really truly hope I never feel a pain like I felt again, and I want to dedicate an entire video just to talking about that because I believe that it's important to talk about these experiences. So I need to warn that they do come with serious trigger warnings, but I also believe that they have the potential to help others who may be experiencing what I've experienced, may have experienced and need to connect with somebody who's been through the same, or God forbid it happens to somebody else in the future, which I know it will. I can't stop that, but I can try and be here for the people it happens to. So, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video today. I understand we've talked about quite a few triggering things in this. We've talked about miscarriages and car accidents and things. If you are sensitive to certain topics like baby loss, please check the trigger warnings before the next video, because that has more talk of baby loss. It has talk of hospital stays and severe illness. in medical settings, there's lots of unpleasantness. So really just be mindful. If you think it's something that's going to affect your mental health, don't watch it. I don't mind, but I need to tell my story. So I appreciate your support. Thank you so much for following me. If you do decide you need to stop because it's no longer just about knitting, totally fine. I wish you the best, and I will hopefully see you in my next one.